Hello there, Tarky here. And finally, he's called the election. The next UK general election will be on July the 4th of this year. And I think I could speak for a significant majority of the country in saying, finally, it's been a long time coming, and Sunak has effectively been squatting in number 10 for all of the 18 months that he's been Tory leader, and the Tories have been desperately unpopular for a much the same length of time, if not longer. Those of you that saw his speech outside Downing Street must be wondering at who his advisors are and how, frankly, how well he reads a situation to stand in the pouring rain to get absolutely soaked as Steve Bray, the famous political Downing Street troller, plays Labour's 1997 winning anthem plus the Star Wars Imperial March, really does give you pause. He looked a completely weak, witless man when he finally walked back into Downing Street, his expensive suit soaked through. What was he thinking? Starmer had the sense to make his complimentary announcement once he heard the news indoors. Even Ed Davey found a waterproof coat for the Liberal Democrats. Anyway, what I'm here to do is to tell you that it's important to get the Tories out. What I mean by that is this election should be all about tactical voting. It's important to block as many of the Tory candidates as we possibly can. Now, that may mean voting for a party that is not necessarily the one you would perhaps put your tick down on in a more fairer voting system. The first past the post system in this country effectively divides things into a two-horse race. And if the vote on the left is divided, which it is normally, then that gives the Tories an open goal. Their goal isn't quite so open now because Reform UK are peeling away some of their voters. Possibly not enough to make a huge difference, as many pollsters seem to be overinflating their figures according to the experts I look at. But nonetheless, there is a little bit of division in the vote on the right. But that makes it more important to vote tactically to ensure that the strongest candidate on the progressive side of politics, who's not a Tory, can take that seat. It would be fantastic, and it is possible, to push the Tories back from being the official opposition to only the third largest party. I don't think it'll happen, but it would be a wonderful thing to do. The website I'm going to point you towards is stopthetories.vote. I would avoid, or at least be very sceptical of, some of the others claiming to direct tactical voting over the next few weeks. A lot of them will be set up by the Conservatives as spoiling actions. Stopthetories.vote is now well established. All you need to do is put in your postcode and it should give you the information for your local constituency with an idea about who the best placed candidate to keep the Tories out should be. It doesn't work 100%. Some constituencies have changed quite a bit over the intervening period between the last election and this one. So therefore, some of you may be perhaps having to work on local knowledge. But it should, for many people, give you an idea who the person best placed to keep the Tories out should be. Once again, I have to reiterate, in a first past the post system, whilst you may really want to vote for another party other than Labour, I can understand that, ultimately, in a first past the post system, you're voting for who the least worst option is with a chance of forming a government. By all means, if you live in Brighton, although Caroline Lucas has stood down, vote for her replacement. But for anywhere else, check stopthetories.vote and see who stands the biggest chance of keeping that Tory out. The other thing to do is to make sure you have your voter ID prepared. The local councils in England and Wales have a system that their people who are registered to vote can obtain photo ID suitable for an election. There are other things that can be used for an election, driver's licences, passports and the like, but the Tories' photo ID fetish was, as Jacob Rees-Mogg admitted early this year or last year, purely to try to minimise the number of people who would be voting who would not be voting for them. It was quite literally an attempt to gerrymander. Please, please do follow up this. Go to your local council's website and look at polling ID or something like that to make sure you can get your identification if you haven't got one of the approved documents already. This applies particularly to younger people, as for some reason the Tories were far more generous to older people in what they might use as voter ID. Funny that it's generally the older cohort that are the Tories' staunchest supporters. Another evidence of gerrymandering. Anyway, here's to finally getting the general election we've been wanting really for over 18 months. I don't want to muddy the waters. I believe, given their poll lead, which has been pretty solid for a year now, that Labour should win this and should have a good majority government no matter what happens. Fingers crossed, of course, things can always go wrong, but on the whole, no party has lost with such a big majority, not even Kinnock's 1992 attempt to get Labour into power over the Conservatives. As I say, it's unlikely that anything other than a Labour government will be formed. The goal here this time is to keep as many Tories out as possible. And of course, once a Labour government installed, what we all need to do is to press between the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrat Party, the Greens and the others, Plaid Cymru, the SNP, for proportional representation in some form or another. A form of voting that gives much more weight to the individual desires of voters rather than simply allowing the party that can amass the biggest number of votes, even if it's not a majority within a constituency, to win that constituency and therefore form a government. I'll say it again, stop the Tories.vote. Get your pencils ready for July the 4th. Is it Independence Day for us as well as the Americans? Are we due to shed the worst government in arguably living memory? Independence from the Tories, who have had 14 years of abject failure to look back on. Anyway, fingers crossed. Chin chin.